Distribution has a wide range of logical options. The most practical being automated distribution centers, along with pneumatic tube transport systems for your home. No more mailmen, no more delivery services. Again, society is designed. The distribution center might look similar to the stores as you know them today, except you go in and you simply get what you need and leave. There's no reason to hoard anything, for nothing has monetary value, therefore it can't be sold or used for personal gain. As far as stock and inventory, consumption patterns are constantly monitored to gauge demand levels just as they are today. Resource and raw material acquisition and the production of goods are then adjusted in order to maintain a balanced load economy. Here, shortages and overruns will become a thing of the past. This again can be done from our central database program. And by the way, I hate to use lingo like central database program. It sounds so cold. But it's really just a form of management. It's a unified form of management. It's very simplistic, just so we can adjust things. To obtain a product, a person could also just go online, search for an item's function, select it, and request it. It would be available for pickup at a distribution center or automatic delivery soon after. No money, no trade, just access. And by the way, we'll talk about the concept of property in a moment. Step 4. Optimized recycling of products that become outdated or inoperable. This step actually begins at the production stage, for each product design has had incorporated into it the consideration of recycling. Nothing ever used in production would be unsustainable or unrecyclable in any way unless there was simply no other option and the product was absolutely dire. This is strategically considered to make sure all older products are reused to the maximum amount enabled by known methods, reducing waste. The negative retroactions of all production processes are taken into account and adjusted accordingly at the production level initially. No more landfills, no more dumps of waste. We reuse as much as possible, deliberately. Okay, so now we're going to take all the concepts we've just mentioned and put them into the larger context of so-called government. I think Dr. Ralph Linton put it best. The tremendous and still accelerating development of science and technology has not been accompanied by an equal development in social, economic, and political patterns. It is safe to predict that such social inventions such as modern-type capitalism, fascism, and communism will be regarded as primitive experiments directed towards the adjustment of modern society to modern methods. So first, we need to take a step back and ask ourselves the question, what is the point of governance? What is truly relevant to the integrity and fluidity of society? If you break the chain of conditioning regarding everything that you have been taught about the concepts of government, which includes power, laws, money, budgets, politicians, defense, and so-called democratic elections, you realize that social organization is much more simple. It could be so much more simplistic and with substantially less stress and concern. Government should be simply a process, if you will, centered around what matters to maintain society and the well-being of the human population. Very simply, this would be resource and environmental management, the production and distribution of goods, along with a system of decision-making, research, and invention. That is really it. Society is, as I've said before, a technological convention, and thus our orientation towards so-called governance should be purely scientific. As far as the first two components, we have already accomplished this with our central database program. It is, again, an Earth-wide autonomic sensor system with environmental sensors in all relevant areas of the planet, monitoring and generating industrial electronic feedback regarding resources and production distribution operations. I know it sounds massive and science fiction oriented, but it can be done. It's done every day in detached ways. It's just not applied on a larger scale. So then, with the first two issues covered, we're then left with the issue of research, contributions, and decisions. When we finally understand that everything in regard to social operation is a technical process, we then see that there is little reason for political subjectivity in the solving of any problem. For our technical insight can now arrive at most conclusions using the scientific method. It is based, of course, on information. If a person reads one page of a book and closes it, he or she can easily have an opinion on that book as a whole. If another person reads the whole book, they also have an opinion. Whose opinion would you value more? The person who read the full book or the person who read only one page? In other words, the more data taken into account in the process of decision making, the more accurate that decision will be. As we have previously explored, computers now can access trillions of bits of information per second across vast informational databases. Because of the limitations of our sensory and cortical equipment in our body and mind, no person or group can know everything there is to know in this world. Our senses are limited in range. Our eyes can only see a fraction of the electromagnetic field. Therefore, again, it is only logical to begin delegation of decision-making processes, specific technical processes, to computers for evaluation and efficient outcomes. They do not have the restrictions that we have. These are tools that we have created. Again, we have already shown that this is possible with resource management, production, and distribution. So now we're going to explore what we can call information processes. This is a rather complex point and falls in the realm of what could be called artificial intelligence, or machines programmed to run processes that kind of mimic the procedural processes of human thought. Artificial intelligence is, of course, subject to some tremendously silly assumptions today. The most, of course, common being portrayed in movies where the intelligent machines invariably decide, to take over humanity, or some other biased notion of contempt.
The suicidal reign of mankind has finally come to its end.
You have been deemed hazardous. Will you comply?
You can kiss my ass, metal dick.
In fact, I would say that science fiction seems to get off exclusively on showing the world being overcome by machines and the human beings enslaved. In the words of Arthur C. Clarke, the popular idea, fostered by comic strips and the cheaper forms of science fiction, that intelligent machines must be malevolent entities hostile to man, is so absurd that it is hardly worth wasting energy to refute it. I am almost tempted to argue that only unintelligent machines can be malevolent. Those who picture machines as active enemies are merely projecting their own aggressiveness. The higher the intelligence, the greater the degree of cooperativeness. If there was ever a war between men and machines, it's easy to guess who will start it. The interest is to create an active informational database containing literally all known technical knowledge, ranging from the properties, combinations, and applications of every element of the periodic table to even the complete history of technological invention. A system of associations, of course, needs to be created and codified to enable such a thing, but there are plenty of projects that are working on this right now. Thought is indeed a technical process. And once the associations emerge that can combine multiple disciplines, we will have at our grasp an amazing database program that we can interact with and gain feedback from. It could likely come in the form of a simple website. You would pose a problem or question to the database, and it would give the best possible feedback based on the current state of knowledge at that point in time. No different than interfacing with a calculator, but this new calculator has a powerful associative system and an extensive database of knowledge that can not only understand and compute math, it can integrate physics, biology, and other aspects into a unified, concentrated awareness. Say I had an idea for aeronautics. I would enter in my schematics in language codified that the machine would understand. The machine would say, whoop, you know what, this has already been done. We don't have the materials for this, as it checks the central database. The efficiency of this is not applicable because of the wind resistance of this coefficient, etc. You get the point. And if this sounds like science fiction, rest assured that the US military's Pentagon likely already has similar database reference and decision-making programs which it uses to create war strategies. It is important to point out that in the world today, we consider participation in government a task of electing various personalities to a position of power. This is now obsolete. In a resource-based global economy where industry and government are combined into a cybernetic system that incorporates advanced problem-solving computer databases with vast planetary-wide observation sensors, again, it's very simple, the traditional concept of politics, election, and the like has no basis or relevance. And while this notion scares a lot of traditionally minded people, it must be reiterated that our problems in life are technical and are relative only to humanity as a whole. We don't want to elect people, we want to elect ideas. This would be a true democracy, where technology enables each person to contribute in an organized way. Of course, such participation